During my mother's birthday gathering, my father called me foolish and declared, "You've always been selfish. Your sister is superior to you." The room fell silent. I responded calmly, "You won't receive another penny from me." What was meant to be a simple family reunion turned into a disaster. I had distanced myself from them for months after finally refusing to be their personal bank. Yet, no matter how far I stayed, they always found a way to pull me back. This time, it was under the guise of celebrating my mother's birthday. Skipping the event would only fuel their narrative of me being the ungrateful son, so I attended. As usual, I covered the restaurant bill, an upscale place, far too luxurious for their tastes. Not because they couldn't appreciate fine dining, but because they never contributed a dime. My parents had perfected the art of leeching off others while pretending they were doing them a favor by accepting their generosity. The tension was palpable the moment I arrived. My sister gave me a slight nod. My aunts and uncles offered polite greetings. But my parents? My father barely glanced up from his drink, and my mother acted as though my presence was a privilege she had granted me. Dinner began, and for a while, it was tolerable. I endured the hollow conversations, the fake laughter, and the meaningless small talk. Then, my father, who had been drinking heavily, turned to me and spat, "You've always been selfish. Your sister is better than you." This wasn't a joke or an offhand comment. He said it with conviction, as if stating an undeniable truth. The table went silent. My sister shifted uncomfortably. My mother continued eating as if nothing had happened, and the rest of the family either looked away or pretended not to hear. No one ever stood up to him. No one ever challenged him. But I did. I set down my fork, wiped my mouth, and locked eyes with him. "You won't get any more money from me." That got a reaction. His face twisted with anger, his jaw clenched, and for the first time that night, he truly saw me. My mother finally stopped eating, my aunts exchanged glances, and the atmosphere shifted. Because everyone knew the truth. My parents didn't care about me. They cared about what I could provide. For years, I had handed them cash whenever they spun a sob story about their struggles. But they weren't struggling. They were squandering it. On gambling, on frivolities, on things I won't even mention. I worked in real estate, selling luxury properties in Los Angeles, negotiating with high-profile clients. Meanwhile, I funneled thousands to my parents, who treated my hard-earned money like play cash, and I was done. My father's expression darkened. My mother, realizing her usual tactic of ignoring the issue wasn't working, escalated. She grabbed a bowl of soup, ready to hurl it at me like a scene from a trashy drama. My aunt barely stopped her in time, but that didn't diffuse the situation. My mother stood up and screamed at me in front of the entire restaurant, calling me ungrateful, claiming I owed them for everything they had done. Their food. The food I had paid for. Then she did it anyway. She snatched the bowl back and threw it at me. Hot, sticky soup splattered across my brand new suit, the one I had bought for an important meeting the next day. I stood abruptly, nearly knocking over my chair. My father seethed, my mother shrieked, and the rest of the family sat in stunned silence. Not a single person spoke up for me. That was the final straw. I had tolerated their insults, their manipulation, their endless demands. But this was deliberate. This was public. I didn't yell, I didn't argue, I grabbed my keys and walked out. And as I left, I made a decision. They had treated me like a walking wallet for years, but they forgot one thing. The house they lived in, the car they drove, both were mine. If they wanted to act like I meant nothing, I'd show them what nothing felt like. The next morning, I took it all back. I barely slept that night. My suit was ruined. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from relatives urging me to be the bigger person. I replayed the scene in my head. My father's smug face, my mother's theatrics, the way no one except my grandfather had shown me even a shred of compassion. That's when I knew. They would never change. By dawn, I was done deliberating. I made coffee and started making calls. First, my real estate attorney. The house was in my name. My parents had never bothered to check the paperwork. Too busy boasting to their friends about their lavish home. I instructed my attorney to list it immediately. Next, their car, also mine. I arranged for repossession. Then, for good measure, I checked their credit card statements. I had co-signed 1 year ago when they begged me to help build their credit. Big mistake. The charges were outrageous: casinos, luxury hotels, shopping sprees. I reported the card stolen and canceled it. By noon, I was on a flight to Los Angeles for a meeting. I had more important things to do than wait for their meltdown. But it didn't take long. The first call was from my mother, screaming about the missing car. I sent it to voicemail. The second was from my father, ranting about how I'd ruined their lives. Deleted. Then my sister reached out, pleading with me to reconsider. "They're panicking," she said. "They have nowhere to go." I replied with a single text. "Not my problem." By the time I landed, my lawyer had already lined up potential buyers for the house. In this market, it would sell fast. Then came the real surprise. My grandfather called. Grandpa never involved himself in family drama. He was old school, reserved, the type who spoke only when necessary. But this time, he had something to say. "Good job, kid." I was stunned. He told me he'd warned my parents for years to stop exploiting me. They never listened. He said they deserved this, that maybe hitting rock bottom would teach them a lesson. Then he added, "Don't sell the house yet. I have an idea." I had no clue what he was planning, but for the first time in years, I felt like I had an ally. We met at a quiet diner outside town. Grandpa sipped his black coffee, studied me, and finally spoke. "Your father thinks he's untouchable. It's time he learns what losing feels like." Instead of selling the house immediately, we'd let them panic. Let them realize the car was gone, their credit was frozen, and their safety net had vanished. After years of living like royalty on my dime, they'd experience true desperation. Then, when they were at their lowest, I wouldn't sell the house, I'd rent it out. To someone else. "What if they beg?" I asked. Grandpa smirked. "Then we make them work for it." My parents had never worked for anything. They expected handouts. But if Grandpa had a way to make them face real consequences, I was in. I updated my lawyer. Listed as a rental. No discounts, no favors. 2 days later, the meltdown escalated. My father called, demanding to know why their home was listed for rent. My mother left tearful voicemails. My sister bombarded me with texts. They're desperate. They have nowhere to go. The best part? My dad asked if they could borrow money for the rental deposit. I laughed and replied, "You called me selfish. Figure it out." When begging failed, they showed up at my office. I was in a meeting when my assistant nervously informed me, "Your parents are here. They refuse to leave." I walked out to find my father fuming, my mother playing the victim, and my sister hovering awkwardly. "You think you can just evict us?" My father spat. I kept my tone calm. "If you want to live there, apply like everyone else. Prove you can pay." My mother erupted. "We're your parents. You should be helping us." I turned to my sister. She looked exhausted but said nothing. She never did. My father sneered. "You're nothing without us. You owe us." Something inside me snapped. "I owe you?" I stepped closer. "I built my career while you wasted every cent I gave you. Now you're broke because you never saw this coming. Well, here it is." His face turned red. My mother gasped. My sister stepped back. I signaled to my assistant. "Call security." Within minutes, they were escorted out. My father hurling insults, my mother wailing about my betrayal, my sister trailing behind silently. As I watched them leave, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Then Grandpa called again. "Good. Now let's make it worse." The next morning, chaos erupted. My phone blew up with calls and texts. Then Grandpa's calm voice. "Turn on the news." My father had been arrested. The headline read, "Local man arrested after luxury hotel incident." He and my mother had stayed at a high-end hotel, racked up a massive bill, and refused to pay. When confronted, my father shoved a security guard and tried to flee. The police tackled him. Grandpa had tipped off the hotel. I laughed until my sides hurt. Meanwhile, the house went under contract. Not for rent, but for demolition. A developer planned to tear it down. My sister begged me to reconsider. "They're living in their car." "Not my problem," I said. A few days later, Grandpa summoned me to the diner one last time. There, sitting across from him, was my father. Broken. Defeated. "I lost everything," he muttered. Grandpa nudged him. "He wants to ask you something." "A job," my father said quietly. I almost laughed. You want me to hire you? He nodded. I have nowhere else to go. I studied him, the man who'd belittled me, humiliated me, let my mother throw soup at me. Now he was looking at me like I was his last hope. And I felt nothing. I stood, tossed cash on the table for Grandpa's coffee, and said, "Actions have consequences. You taught me that." Then I walked out. For years, I let them use me, hoping they'd someday care. They didn't. They only cared about what I could give. Now they had nothing. And I had everything. Freedom, peace, and a life without their toxicity. For the first time, I slept soundly, knowing the only person I needed to worry about was myself. If you enjoyed this story and felt the emotions behind it, don't forget to give it a like, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life experiences and heartfelt stories. Your support means the world, and it helps us bring more content like this to you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.